Welcome to the Sonic Days podcast, home of all things audio. This season was recorded live at Sonic Days 2024. In this episode, we dive into how AI is reshaping the world of podcasting. From enhancing storytelling to automating production, AI brings both exciting opportunities and important questions. Moderated by Finn Markwardt, this discussion explores practical applications, ethical considerations, and the future potential of AI in the podcast industry.
Welcome then to this debate we have here about AI. It's called AI in Podcasting, Exploring Opportunities and Challenges. And actually what we're going to debate now is hopefully not only that this is the scary thing that will kill all podcasting, and actually try from the start to say, okay, which things are out there and how can we use them actually? How could they be used in a positive way, anyway? So let's have the positive glasses on, put them on right now, and then say, okay, what's out there? We had this talk with Marcel earlier this morning, and we went through some of the tools that are there, and also some of the things we could probably go deeper into now, and of course something about where to use it and how, but we'll build on top of this, but I see there's a lot of people who are not there today, so probably go a little deeper. If we need to demonstrate something, then we probably could go back and take some of the points from that one. But first of all, I think we'd like an introduction to you guys. So, Tim?
Hi, my name's Tim. I make a podcast called Third Ear here in Denmark. That's what I do. I've been doing that for a long time. I've also been doing lots of things in sound for a long time, so I've been around a bit.
I'm Marcel, a host of Prompt, the tech show on Danmarks Radio. Yeah, that's all you need to know for now.
Hi, I am Oskar. I am sound designer and composer at Zetland, currently in the investigative group where I do my thing.
I'm Kurt Martinez. I'm head Dolby Atmos mix engineer at Dean Street Studios in London, working in music, live concert films and podcasts.
Okay, and let's start actually by saying, okay, now you're going to do a podcast show, but you're trying to find some ideas, and let's imagine that you know probably you like a kind of a personal podcast or something like it. And you could use all the AI tools that are there. Which one would then be the first to pick, and what would be the challenges for that?
So I've got to use an AI tool to have an idea. Well, that's the first thing I'm not going to do. I'm not going to use an AI tool to have any ideas. Don't need them for that. There's some things I might use them for. The only things I've really used them for, and I would continue to do, I use a lot of text to audio to text stuff or translation stuff. That might be really useful to me because it's research basically. I don't really need much more than that if I'm thinking about especially having ideas. I have tried and several times think, I can try it. I've tried it out, tried some text. So I've actually done that, and actually so far my experience has been that I end up with a text and I think, this will be easy. I'll do it with ChatGPT, and then I can take a couple of days off. And then a few weeks later, I realize I haven't done any work. So actually, I'm learning already to be careful of believing that I'm going to be able to rely on it, because it's never actually good enough for me to use for anything like that. So
is that until now, you think, or is it just because you think you're...
To be honest, I think it's getting worse, not better.
Okay.
And I think that's also been proven out there in AI land, that the AIs are not doing terribly good job. Everything reads and sounds like an American high school report, more and more, because that's mostly what's feeding it. But I'm good at prompting the thing. I can get it to write texts. I recently got it to write an introduction to a podcast series in the style of a particular character in a particular Cormac McCarthy book that was written in 1971, and bingo, it does a great job. So I might be able to use it for that to get an idea of what I might be able to do. I'm a big fan of the scientist and communicator Carl Sagan, if anyone's ever heard of him. Brilliant guy. Talked about the little blue dot and all of this sort of stuff, the cosmos. So yeah, if you want a voiceover written in the style of Carl Sagan, I can get one. And then I can use that as a kind of a start point. It's so far not really a finish point. So if I have an idea, the idea is mine to use, for example, a well-known writer, character, person, style, and see some text in front of me. And then I move on.
Okay.
Yeah, I really agree in many aspects here. The funny thing about ChatGPT is that it makes you a draft, and when you get that draft, you just want to change it, every word. But it moves me out of my white paper crisis in a way, and that's why I like it, because that could be a hard one. I totally agree that for creativity it's terrible. I mean, I try to make my manuscript for the show so many times, and it's so terrible. And the reason for that, I think, is that when you want to be original and you want to be creative in podcasting, and that's not what it's good at. It's not good at making something that you've never seen before. It's just like an average of what it's seen. So that's why it's not good at that. And then I agree on we should use it for some boring stuff like transcription, translation. We've seen tremendous work in that area the last couple of years, and that's the game changer. I mean, I used to spend 5 hours of transcribing 1 hour of interview myself. Now it's done in seconds, and that gives you more time to be creative yourself, to have some nice meetings and make a greater show. So that's the way I think the generative AI we have now should be used to free up some time for the nice stuff.
I feel like I use it sometimes for searching for new music when I'm like, I need some instrumental stuff that's kind of this genre. Also, it's basically like a Google search, but maybe a bit more curated. And then I just like try to flip through it.
Can you describe a bit more what you do?
I'm like, I need instrumental music, 80 sounds or something like that. And then sometimes it's completely like not instrumental or it can be like really weird. But I was just thinking about like my idea generation process, right? I think that's where, and mostly that I've been using it. So I don't use ChatGPT that much actually in my work.
I'm working mainly in mixing, so I'm not involved in the sound design process or anything. I'm working with scripted audio dramas and documentaries. So a lot of what I'll get is a sound designer, composer, they've worked on a stereo edit and they've got it to a point that they're happy with it. Then I'll have those files all stemmed out and sent over to me to begin an Atmos mix. A lot of the time, they're bypassing their mastering process or any bus processing. So I'll use a thing called Smart Limit from Sonable, and I'll drop their stereo reference in as a reference track, hit play on the loudest part or something that's got the most going on, and that limiter will actually work out the limiting settings from their master. That saves me a hell of a lot of time if I'm working on, a 40, 50 minute drama. And then I'll kind of tweak from there. So I've got similar settings. I know that I'm within a ballpark, and then I've got, a target to mix to where I can flick to their reference throughout. So I know that I'm honouring their work throughout the process.
And you're not cheating there, right? That's just a tool.
Yeah, no, it's just a tool. Yeah, no, it just helps me out. It helps my ears. So if it's, because I work primarily in music, if I'm working with music, a song generally 3.5 minutes, I'll do that by ear. That's not a problem. Play about with the settings and I'll get it there in no time. With a podcast, because I know I'm going to be listening so much to other elements, it's just so I can get it within that ballpark. Sometimes, stems will arrive and they are literally, you drop them in, A/B them against the stereo and they're absolutely perfect. But occasionally there's those ones where it's missing, it's 6 dB quieter, and there's just some processing missing. So it's just a case of getting it within that ballpark, so I know that I hit the ground running from the off.
Then now, actually, we see 4 really top professionals in the business of podcast or Atmos mixing. But now, if you were just doing a cheap show, just you for small company or stuff like that, would it then be cheating? Or if you were just applied to, asked to make a small show there, you could take all the tools. Which one would then be cheating, or what would be fair?
This is not cheating. This is like the same talk we had with Wikipedia, like 10 years ago or 20 years ago. Like, yeah, in the beginning we talk about it as cheating, but now I would say it's stupid not to have the AI to try to make the draft for you, and then you can try to beat it. I think it's fair that we have this kind of give many more people the opportunity to make sound, to make podcasts, just the way that social media like took the star away from broadcasting networks in a way. So this will open the world to many more people. We'll see a lot more podcasts about that will get like 0 or 1 listener maybe, but to be in the top 100 or 200 in Denmark, you still need the best people and the best minds, I would say. So, and I don't see the robots make like the new Genstart for the next many years.
Yeah, I agree with that. We don't make cheap podcasts, Finn. We don't do that.
No.
Also, one thing the world really doesn't need is any more fucking podcasts. Let's face it. It's like plenty of them out there. I mean, and there is an interesting aspect to it, and I think you've played this example from the LM auto-generated audio podcast that, funnily enough, it sounds actually better than an awful lot of the podcasts that are out there already. There's a lot of stuff that's really just very bad. And the question here isn't necessarily, well, should we then just make AI podcasts? I think the question is more, shouldn't we just make better podcasts generally? I don't think AI podcasts in themselves are ever really going to have that much value. And in fact, I think there's an anti-value in them as well. There's something that happens to you when you find out it's fake. To me especially, as soon as I know it's AI, I've lost all, and this may change for sure, but I've kind of lost it then. I'm like, I don't want to listen to this shit.
Okay, then I'll just play the one that I played. Some of you heard it earlier today, but Google has made this tool called Google LM Notebook LM, yeah, and it's actually You can probably describe it better.
The idea is that you upload a PDF or a hyperlink or a book or anything, and no matter how boring it is, they'll make a podcast show about that with 2 hosts blabbing about that for 10 minutes.
And I asked it just to make a podcast about Sonic Days by only pointing at the website. sonicdays.com, and it sounded like this.
Okay, folks, buckle up, because today we are diving deep.
Deep?
Yeah, deep into something super cool.
Oh, yeah.
Sonic Days 2024.
Sonic Days.
You heard that right. An audio industry event happening in Kolding, Denmark.
Kolding, Denmark.
On November 20th and 21st. And get this, it's totally free.
Free, wow.
Free. No catch.
That's pretty amazing.
I know, right? Like most industry events cost an arm and a leg.
Yeah, you're usually looking at hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars.
Exactly. And this is free for everyone.
That really opens it up to, well, anyone.
I know, that's what I'm excited about.
Definitely.
So let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive in.
So Sonic Days 2024.
November 20th and 21st.
Mark your calendars, folks.
Big red circle.
It's aimed at everyone in the audio world.
Doesn't matter if you're a seasoned pro or just starting out.
Like if you're just curious about sound.
Anyone who's interested in the future of audio, basically.
Future of audio.
That's what it's all about.
Exactly. And the fact that it's free.
Huge deal.
It makes it accessible to literally anyone.
Students, hobbyists. Anyone can come and learn and network and just be a part of the community.
It's all about breaking down those barriers.
Absolutely.
So who's behind this awesome event?
Well,
Drum roll, please.
Sonic College.
Sonic College.
They're a leading institution for audio education in Denmark.
Based in Demel.
Kolding,
Denmark.
Yeah, they've got a stellar reputation in the audio world.
They're all about shaping the next generation of sound professionals.
Yeah, they're super innovative.
Okay, I think you get it, and it's free. I say. Yeah. So now actually you probably better understand what you were talking about, Marcel. That this is, or you said, because this is probably much better than a lot of what you find out there, right? But it's totally crap, right?
It's better than, I mean, everyone, if you pick a random person on the street and ask them to make a podcast, they'll be like, welcome to my show about, I mean, this is better in many ways. But to experts, and if you need to, like, if you have to choose 10 podcasts that you're listening to, would you pick this one as one of them? I don't think so. The competition is too difficult.
But if this then was a podcast about my special interest, a kind of a chess game, or maybe a chess games only in my small chess club, something like that, then probably I could have a podcast where it's told something about this was amazing.
Yeah, the super narrowcasting podcast is designed for a few people. Yeah, of course you can see it working. But there's also kind of this talks to a different. I know in the US a few years ago we used to laugh about it because you used to be able to get an app that could cut out all the gaps between the words in a podcast so that it went quicker, and then hear it at double speed, because like you've got like American kind of college students who just need more information. They just want this podcast to come in like really really fast, but absolutely no gaps in between, so you can get all the stories and there's nothing in between. You don't have to stop editing.
You don't need it.
It's like, and we kind of like when we make our carefully crafted podcast, we kind of like the gaps. We kind of enjoy the gaps. It's not all just about words and hosts. And this also assumes that all a podcast can be is hosts talking about shit. It can't even include guests in this format, but so not yet. They'll be there, but it's kind of weird because it's a very narrow idea of what a podcast is and what it's for.
But this is version 1. This one, right? It's pretty new. What will happen?
I mean, I have no idea, but just hearing that for the first time, with you saying it's AI and knowing that going in, I hear it. But if you didn't know, you'd think, maybe completely cheesy and a bit weird. But at the same time, that sounds legit. That's wild for technology. I mean, if that's the start, then where do we go from here? That's nuts.
I think a point you made before, or I thought the exact same thing in the train up here, that just the point that it's made by an AI makes you less interested in that. And of course you can cheat people and not telling them that it's an AI, but as soon as you get bored in a way. And I'm not finished thinking about this, but that is spot on, and that's why I don't think we'll be listening to AI podcasts. Because why are we making them? We're making them to entertain and for people to tell us they're nice and good job and I liked it. I mean, what's the idea about this? Yeah. So let's see.
And I feel like the way we've experienced AI throughout these past years, it's like when you see it more and more, it gets like more and more the same. Also, kind of you said it, when you listen to 5 of these podcasts, you begin to recognize the same pattern. And I spoke to a guy yesterday who said just the same thing, where I was like, I think it's super crazy, but he was like, yeah, listen to 5 of them. And like, so I think we'll get insane if it's like it's just the same. And maybe it's gonna get a bit better, but I don't know if we're always gonna be able to recognize AI in some way. I feel like we are.
Yeah, and it reminds me of something that happened in when we started doing podcasts way back in the day, around 2010, 15 years ago. newspapers started doing multimedia newspaper stories with moving graphics and video and all of this sort of stuff. And there were a couple of projects at that time. One in particular from, I think it was the New York Times, made a project called Snowfall, which was a story about some people who'd been in an avalanche. And it starts with this amazing graphic. And everyone in the room, when you played that thing, they all went, fuck, this is the future of media. Literally. And when you hear that for 1.5 minutes, you go, fuck, this is the future of media. And then you hear it for 5 minutes, you're going, fuck off, this is just nonsense. It's nonsense. It isn't, but it's true that Guardian or a New York Times article has become normal for most newspapers. It in many ways was the future of media. I mean, they all have animated graphics and included video and all of that, and a newspaper article now. That's normal. So what part of that becomes normal, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, but then let's take some of the other tools that are there. Just to look, if we have, you are the host, but you have a guest that's really a hard-talking guy, but you can now use another voice and just let him type it in or just say some words and then it will be translated into word. Would that be okay?
I'll never say never, maybe not. But I think there's and I know the guys at Zetland, they've discussed this idea a lot, as far as I understand it anyway, that they're a integrity-based journalist thing. They've sort of already got onto the idea, if we start using this now, what do we look like in 5 years? Like, what do we look like in 5 years when it becomes a premium not to have this stuff? When you can sell the fact that you don't use this as the thing that makes you worth having. Because if everything else has got that, then you're the one that doesn't have it. So that's why, I like to listen to this guy's show because he actually writes it himself and he actually makes the effort. I'm going to buy that one. I'm not going to buy that one. So even if you start using it now, I think it's something to tread really carefully with and to be quite careful about flagging up, saying, look, this is an AI voice, everyone, at this point, because. But I've heard documentaries where, for example, they've revoiced Donald Trump's tweets in Donald Trump's voice. Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe that works because you've got a lot of text-based media now that you can make into audio very easily with the right voices. So,
and it just really moves so quickly. This field, like we've had, some principles on Zetland exchange on how we are supposed to use AI. And I had this experience we're making the show Zetland about Zetland, where Thomas was exploring how we're using AI. And he got by me. I was doing Frederik forklarer internettet. It's about the internet where I've been using AI for like when Frederik is typing to the AI. I use it as like a dynamic layer. So I make it say the words that he has said, but it sounds like the AI talking sometimes. It's like two different voices. Like I can play with two voices. And Thomas was like, "What, are you generating Frederik's voice?" And he was like shocked about it because Zetland is like the saying Zetland is made by humans for humans. And am I still doing that? So I was dragged into like the studio with the director and Thomas, being asked like, "Do you think this suits our principles, Oskar?" And I was like, and it was a podcast. It was like the climax of the podcast. It was just using me as a, But I was like, I see. Maybe I am like challenging it a bit. But I feel like the podcast, like Frederik forklarer internettet, where it's all about the internet and like AI and stuff, would be a place to do it. But now, when I do it, I have made the 11 Labs voice in the end say like, "By the way, this is Frederik's 11 Labs voice, and I am created by 11 Labs." So it's like we need to disclaim it when we use it. And I think that's a really cool way to use 11 Labs. I really enjoy that because it's like it gives me more width as a sound designer to play with that. Like I can make this digital sound, and then Frederik's voice is AI, and then he's back again, and like. So in that way, it's really cool as a creative effect more than it's like stealing or like it's not easier. But yeah. And for Zetland, it's like weighing this like journalistic integrity versus like making the best product. Like we always have to ask ourselves like where do we go with this? Like know all about the AI stuff, but also where do we stop and where do we use it?
some guys from Sonic College here made a bachelor project about AI and actually did an episode of Against Art that nobody actually could hear, were not made by humans, except that there was the feeling was a bit lazy voices in a way. But then you talked about, okay, if the host suddenly were ill and or out or something, and you could need just a bite, wouldn't it be nice just to be able to type it and say, okay, it's her voice, it's her, and she wrote it and asked us to do it? Would it then be okay? Or should we make a disclaimer, or should we just say, okay, we'll never do that?
But also the thing I'm saying, it's moving so fast right now in Zetland's principles. We just agreed that it's okay for a journalist to change one word if it's a really necessary in his speak like that with this stuff.
So exactly, if you say
he said the wrong train station or in the speak, and he's gone home for these purposes, small things. But we always you have to talk about whether or not it's the journalistic integrity is there or not.
This would then be without you saying this is an AI.
Yeah.
Just be.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Is everything okay?
Would that be okay for you? Would you ever do it, Tim?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm not averse to the idea of the new technology itself. There are some other reasons why I'm averse to the new technology itself. We were just talking about that Amazon are building 6 nuclear power stations to run the fucking data centers that make this stuff happen. I mean, it's not for nothing, this tech. There are other reasons not to like it. It also, like I said earlier, I could make it generate stuff off other people's creative work. We're all in this room. I mean, most of you guys here wanting to work in the audio industry, there's a good chance half of you are going to lose your job because of it. So it's not great for everybody. I mean, there's a lot of things it can do that you've been training to do and you might want to do for a living. So maybe there are things like that which are not okay, and things that we might actually have to make more of a stand against and say, no, not doing that stuff. Because it's not really, there's a lovely word in tech they call solutionism, which is basically when you create technology that solves a problem that isn't there. And this solves a problem that just does not exist. There is no need for this at all. You can get your journalist to say the right train station. It takes, 1 more minute? And I can writing your own text, that takes a while, but you have to do it anyway. I can read a book or something, I don't know. For me, that's the sort of more existential threat that this stuff kind of does present, which isn't really very okay.
There's one thing that, Marcel, you talked about this, that we would never listen to a podcast if we knew it was only AI. Does that mean actually, is that in total that if there's no human behind the idea or what's going on, then it can be just as beautiful as it wants to be, as it is, but as long as there's no human behind it, then it's worth nothing?
I think so. I'm not sure, but it's the same effect as we just talked about, that it peaks in funniness for the first time you hear it, and it just goes down the slope. And in the end, we should remember that the AI should serve us in a way. I mean, this way of fixing a late night problem with the AI, I have no problem with that, but it should not be a gimmick, or it should not be like the product in a way. AI is not, we don't need AI just because of AI. I mean, we need it because it should fix some problems we have. It should do something faster for us, and we need to remember that. So I'm pretty sure in my guess that we will not be listening to podcasts in this way, but I could be wrong. Yeah.
I feel like I've used the Level Labs too as for making a sketch of a podcast. I did this show called Smørkongen in the summer, big summer series where Frederick was just basically speaking everything, a lot of scenes where I did the sound design to it, and then I could make all of episode 1 and then start doing the sound design before he had even made the speaks. So in that way, it kind of made my scene or sound design process faster or easier. So it's also these tools, I find this really cool. When you're able
it's a draft again,
yeah,
right?
Exactly, just a draft.
Yeah.
Or a sketch, yeah.
Sketch, yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of a different level because we've been talking so far about integrity in journalism and voices and believability and stuff. But there's also like in the mechanical side of things, which is super useful stuff. And I know one particular software developer right now who's actually developing. It's a podcast software very much used for making podcasts, and he's developing a button that says sound design this, compose music for this. Here's my podcast, now make it nice with sound design and whatnot. So you have a job. Shouldn't say who, but this stuff is again. I mean, it's like, isn't it? But and also a lot of stuff. I'm sure you're a brilliant sound mixer on your own, but the better and better the smart tools get, then it's just a case of uploading it to a website and back again, and but it wouldn't be as good as probably as what you do, and you probably would do a better job, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yeah, I find I've used AI a couple of times for problem solving, not for trying things from the off, but for fixing things as if I've got to the end of something, I was like, I physically can't fix this, and I need to find lean on technology to help me. I worked on an album a few years ago. This would apply to podcasting in some way, I'm sure. But so the album was done 2 years ago. The artist decided that he was struggling with his mental health. He decided to shelve the album. 2 years on, he's decided to put it out. But within those 2 years, he's re-recorded a few lines. The producer had moved to the US, so we couldn't get the files from him. The engineer just didn't have the files, and I was struggling to get these 2 lines. So I ended up taking the mixers, using a piece of software called Moises, and ripping the vocal with the reverb, and then dropping that into my mix. And I flew it past the artist. He's dead against AI for everything. I sent it to him and I was like, look, I've used AI to do this. Are you cool with this? And he couldn't hear the difference. He was like, this is awesome. So I did it on another track that he'd done, and that's all passed and that's all going out. But that, in terms of problem solving, there's no way that I could re-record his vocal like him, you know what I mean? It had to be his vocal, so to rip it and do it that way, that really worked. I had a chat with someone, it was literally last week, I was working on a TV advert, and we were talking about ambient sounds and Krotos, which is like a piece of software where you can, for ambient sounds, you can determine how natural something sounds or how built up, if it's like street sounds, forest sounds, and you literally with the switch of a dial can create these ambient sounds with AI, which I think in terms of that with adverts and things, if you don't have those kind of sounds in your library, to be able to just lean on software and pull something in, whether it's for demo purposes, whether it actually ends up being in there, it feels like a good use of the technology, and saves time on actually going out and recording something on location. Same for podcasts as well. Like with scripted dramas, there'll be scenes that are like 5 to 10 minutes long, where you've just got continuous sounds, and in some cases you're having to crossfade things and to get those sounds to run longer. In that respect, leaning on something like that software wise, you can determine 20 minutes. There you go. You fade the start and end points, and you've got your scene mapped out.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add to that because I've actually had this thought myself multiple times. I spend a lot longer than most people do mixing and editing sound for podcasts. It's because I come from film previously and whatnot. But as I get older and less patient and more lazy, I have actually found myself sitting in a chair and thinking, if I sit here for like 10 hours, this is going to be awesome. But I know exactly what I'm going to do, and it's going to take me 10 fucking hours. If I could press that little beep, and then it would do the 10 hours I would have done anyway, I'd love that. I'd love that. I had like a little robot mini-me that would just do what I would have done anyway. That would be really, really nice. But yeah, I can see it's a bit tricky.
Yeah, but then you needed to find something else to do for those 10 hours, and maybe we'll just have we'll just have another start point. Maybe if you could press that button, everyone would press that button, and then we'll start from there. What else could you do with your creativity and with your brain if you spend those 10 hours on something else? And I think about whether this discussion, whether you're going to have a job in 20 years or not. It's also, you need to know AI. You need to see it. You need to try it. You need to see what, okay, if this AI can do exactly what I do now and even better, then I'm fucked. Then what? Then we'll find something else to do. But of course, it's no pleasure for anyone to do the exact same thing as a robot. And this has been the same on the factory. We've seen this with before the calculator, people were doing it by hand. Now they don't need to do, but we still need people who can do math. So I mean, we just have to follow what's happening. You need to know the tools, and it's not like being stubborn and just doing. I want to do it in the old way. I mean, if there's an AI that can do it on the same quality, of course you should know that and use that, and figure out, okay, how can I be a human for those minutes instead of being like a machine. Yeah.
Also, that's a really good point, and I think as well. I know I've met like music producers who never went digital, and they still make great music. But it's not because what made them still continue to be music producers, because they were really good at it and using whatever tools they had. And if you use the same tools as everyone else in the same way as everyone else, that's generally going to make you less interesting and less valuable. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter what tools you use and how you use them, but if you're using them in an interesting way, and if you're always thinking a bit like, how can I use this the way that I'm not supposed to use it. I'm a big fan of the music producer Brian Eno. You always said, like, the first thing you should do when you buy a new piece of equipment is throw away the instruction manual, because then you'll make something interesting with it. I like that idea. It's a bit like this. It's like, what am I supposed to do with it? What am I not supposed to do with it? It's like, that I think is kind of fun.
Yeah, I feel like it takes a lot of like training or like just practice to be good at using the AI tools as well. That goes a lot of time into assignments of that. Like, I think everyone here has tried Adobe Speech Enhance. If you just go full wet on it, it sounds super weird too. Like, you have to find the sweet spot as well. And then like how you're gonna mix it. It's not so simple. Like, and also I feel like, I don't know if we can talk like stem separation, things like lal, lall. Yeah, this AI thing that can split like voice from instrumentations, but that just offers up some new possibilities for you to be creative. Like, it's not like it's taking anything away. It's just giving more like possibilities for me, I feel like.
There's one thing that's important, for instance, for musicians or composers, the copyright thing. Of course, also by if you're writing a podcast, where did they get it from? And Marcel, I heard it actually in your podcast that we actually don't know how they work, these machines, right? We don't know how they collect their info, what they listen to, and how they work.
First of all, there's an element of black box of how the AI works itself. The approach with the generative AI has generally been more and more data into the machine, and then all of a sudden it just went from worse to very good. Maybe we're reaching a top for that. Maybe we cannot just throw more more tracks into the machine and we'll get better music. We'll have to see. And you asked about the copyright aspect of that. The generative music AI software, they just stole the music. I mean, no musicians are paid for this. They put it into a machine, and we are at the moment where we were with pirating, I think right now, where everyone is like, okay, everything is free. And I think in 2-3 years from now, we'll see that no, it wasn't free, of course.
Actually, I looked a little bit into this, and there's a couple of interesting things that are happening with AI. I got 2 cease and desist emails last week from Spotify that found a 30-second clip of a Rolling Stones song in a podcast we released in 2011. Please remove immediately. So one thing that AIs are doing is she's reading everything. And you wonder why people like, I don't know who's done it recently, Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, all these massive buyouts of back catalogue. that Universal Music is doing, and Universal Music is buying everything, basically. They're actually trying to buy all the music on the planet. And then they're putting it in a machine that literally reads the music that's on the internet and said, how similar is this to that song that we own? So when you say the music is for free, it's not for free because you have to pay, but you don't have to pay anyone except Universal Music. They're the ones who own everything. So they're the only ones who are going to get paid, not you, I'm afraid. Well, that's the kind of dark version of it. But that's what they're doing. That's the reason that they're doing this, is to kind of own all the music that's been so far, so that all the music that may come in the future is already owned by them. And that, take them to court and say, well, actually, I think I used the G and an A and a D in my song. That's not easy to copyright, but there's a few things that they can kind of like say, it sounds a bit like the middle part of, and it's an old trick. I mean, it goes back years. People used to buy old musical music and stuff, sheet music, and then like try and sue Led Zeppelin for, well, Led Zeppelin did rip their stuff off, but but people who didn't rip their stuff off, But that's kind of an interesting development, the robots were, and then all of that process is automated, so it's not like a person who decides. And they can kind of say, well, it's 80% the same, or it's 81% the same, or it's 83% the same, and then they decide which the cut-off point is. It's like, if we get over 86%, we sue them. Something like that.
Yeah, I think we are at the end where, the point where we should have some questions from the audience here. Yeah.
My question is to Kurt. I don't know a whole lot about your background, but I assume you have a great amount of expertise within your field of audio. And therefore, I also have great trust in your ability to get the results that you want working on a project. And therefore, I think it's okay that you use these AI tools that you have at your disposal to save yourself time on things you would have gotten in your own way. How do you feel about people with less experience who have sacrificed less time getting better results? Because we sort of see the threshold, the entry level of making good products is being lowered in real time.
I think there's, with anything, you've got to hone your craft and you've got to spend your time figuring out what works and what doesn't. For me now, I've got deadlines to work to, and particularly with the podcast series and things, if they are much longer episodes and there's only me that's listening to them, I don't have an assistant, so it's literally just, I'm a one-man band. When it comes to music, I think there's a different thing to it. So like with music, I kind of get into it and it's almost like a more creative process because I almost become like a spatial producer, if you like. It gives me a sense of creativity back that I wouldn't have had in stereo. With the podcast, I find it, and post-production in general, I find it more formulaic, and I've got to work to a certain set of rules. I've got to deliver it on time, and then chances are I'm on another thing on Monday. So I know I've got to use what I can to get things delivered to a certain standard and then move on to the next project. And that's where it comes into play with post-production. But I'll always try and get something as close as possible or where I need to before I lean on anything, like with those examples. When I was on about Krotos, I've not used Krotos myself. That was another client. But it's interesting hearing what he's been doing with it and where you could take it and where you could use that in future. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering with the AI talk, because now we're a room full of sound designers and sound people. Has anyone talked to the audience about what they think? Because I heard this example of an image generated, and the only way that this person could see that it was generated was because she was a paraglider, so she could see that the clouds did not exist in that area. And in many ways, the example was that with AI, you can, as a person who don't know the field very well, you'll very easily be tricked. But if you're an expert, it's more difficult to be tricked. And in some ways, I think we as sound people we're kind of like, not gatekeepers, but like the middle people who care about stuff, because you might have a company or something like that who just wants a product and they don't really care about how it's made. And then you've got the consumer. Is it just us who care, or is it also the consumer?
There was there've been some northern lights in America, and some people were lucky to catch an image of that. And then Meta, the company behind Instagram and Facebook, they posted something that stated, if you didn't catch a photo of Northern Lights, here's a tool to generate one. And then I was just like, what's the idea then of taking a photo? And this, I also used the example of a Christmas card. Do you want a Christmas card that's written by an AI? Yes or no? I mean, the thing about a Christmas card is that somebody took the time to write it. So yes, you can make an image of a northern light that nobody would be able to see whether it's real or not. But it doesn't matter in a way. What matters was the story that somebody took this picture, somebody saw this and took a picture of that. Because we all know how a northern light looks like.
Yeah, that's a super interesting question. I think we are all the audience too, even if we are professionals. I think there's something, everybody's got a really good set of, well, every person who's got good ears has got ears. And the things that happen are not necessarily to do with tech. I mean, when you hear something, it's something internal, something deeper than just the surface of what the media is. So on that level, I think anybody can tell, like with the Northern Lights, it's like it has that kind of missing sparkle. But yeah, it's a super interesting question. I mean, but there is, I think that was what I was trying to say with the example of the people who like to hear the podcast speed it up, and that there'll be an audience for everything. There will be an audience who love listening to AI podcasts, especially things like audio books, especially maybe technical audio books. I mean, who cares? Stuff. There is a bunch of who cares stuff that is not a problem, I think, and that people won't bother. But that's what I sort of see happening, is this kind of like premium value of the non-AI being more and more interesting and more unique. And that hopefully is the positive side of this, that if it makes us better and it frees us up to do better things, that's a good thing. And the audiences will get better. They will get better taste. They will expect more. You know, if you hear if you think that's, why don't our Danish podcasts sound as snappy and as good as that? Maybe it inspires us to make snappier, better Danish podcasts. Maybe, but yeah, maybe.
Okay, I think this is it. Time's up, and thank you for joining.